with that. Start the day with that. So that's number 9, starting on the right foot. Number 10 is getting a mentor, or in this case, let's say a life coach. The reason that I bring that up is because when we're little kids, our parents are the ones who are holding us accountable when we start, goofing off and wasting time and so on. Your parents will say, shut that book and go back to studies, or shut that computer game, go back to studies. And, did you pray your salah? You had your parents there. Now, as you get older and your parents are kind of like, they're not there telling you what to do, and you kind of like have to take responsibility of that, one of the best things to do is get a mentor or a life coach or somebody that basically is there to make sure you got your tasks done. I have a life coach. It's what I recommend. And so a week will pass by. I have some tasks that I need to get done. Life coach is going to call or I'm going to call the life coach on a specific date, and I'm going to be held accountable for these things. If you don't have a life coach, where's that accountability coming from? And when you do have that accountability, mashallah, tabarakallah, you can get so many things accomplished in a very short time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that's number 10, that is getting a mentor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, بعد نعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. I want you to imagine, as you know in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْعَصْرِ, by the time, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, that the human being is at loss or is in loss. I want you to imagine like a person who sells ice in some villages around the world. Now, alhamdulillah, I know there's refrigerators and trucks that have refrigerators in it, but that's a recent development. In the olden days, if someone made ice and they wanted to sell it, they would have to take the ice from the storage, go out into the village, and they only have a certain number of hours before the ice melts. Imagine if you can hold out your hands right now, almost like you're making dua, hold out your hands and imagine that there's this big cube of ice in your hand. And I know it's kind of like prickly and it's cold, and you might be, leaning it from one hand to the other. That ice that's in your hand is representative of your life. Okay? You need to take advantage of it, but if you did nothing, by the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set up our lives, that you are a loser. Automatically, you're at loss. Because the ice is going to melt one way or the other. In your life is going to pass by, whether you want it to or not. Just like this ice is melting. Now, you can take advantage of it. Take advantage of the ice. I don't know, use it for a nice drink or something like that. While you have it, use it to earn the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while you have it, because in a few hours that ice is going to melt and you will be dead. Your life will be over. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that he's like a traveler. He's a traveler, traveling for a portion of the day, and then he took some shade under a tree for a little while and then moved on. Similarly, in our lives, what we're doing here in this life is not a destination. We're just passing by. Just like people before us have passed by, and people after us will come along and will be gone after that. Other people will walk this earth. In a hadith narrated by Tirmidhi, an authentic hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَن تَزُولَ قَدَمَ عَبْدٍ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ حَتَّى يُسْأَلَ عَنْ أَرْبَعٍ. The Prophet ﷺ said that the 2 feet of the servant will not cease from standing before Allah on the Day of Judgment until he is asked about 4 things. So what the Prophet ﷺ is saying is that nobody's going to leave the questioning. Nobody's going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the questioning will not end until these 4 questions come up. You ask, what are those 4 questions? Number 1, عن عمره فيما أفناه. And number 2, وعن شبابه فيما أبلاه. And number 3, وعن علمه ماذا عمل به. And number 4, وعن ماله من أين اكتسبه وفيما أنفقه. The Prophet ﷺ said that these are the 4 questions that a person will be asked about. The first one being that the person will be asked about their life and how they spent it. What did you do in your life? That's the question. How did you spend your life? The second question that every servant will be asked is your youth. How did you exhaust it? What did you do in your youth? How was it spent? Because even for our young brothers and sisters, we're talking about time, we're talking about leaving a legacy and so on. And a person might be saying to themselves, hey, I'm still young. You know what, I can do all that serious stuff, quote unquote serious stuff when I get older. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us, what did we exhaust our youth with? You know, some people may have spent their youth worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and others would have just been playing around. And we're not even talking about the haram stuff. The haram stuff, that's a different league. But just distraction. Person playing video games and watching TV and all of that stuff, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us about that time. So next time we're just lounging around, wasting time, I want you to look at the clock, just like I look at the clock, and imagine that there's a question above the clock that says, what have you achieved with me today? In these moments that are ticking, what have you done? And you will be asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we want to spend this time so that we have an excuse, a word. I was once reading like a biography of a sheikh who's very active on the internet, very, very active. And this person, the sheikh was answering a question about, how people spend their time in distractions, playing cards and things like that. And I know the sheikh, he's done so much, mashallah, tabarakallah. He made a statement in which he said that, every night you should come back to your bed so exhausted that as soon as your head hits the pillow, you're fast asleep. And you should become like that, spending your time with the da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, calling to Allah's way, doing beneficial things for your dunya and your akhirah. So that every night you go to bed, you should not be sitting awake in your bed because you haven't tired yourself out. It's like spend your time, don't let it go wasted like that. And mashallah, tabarakallah, the shaykh has achieved a lot. And similarly, there's so much more we could be doing in our time. And it just starts with a good intention, inshallah ta'ala. The last of those 2 things were that a person will be asked about their knowledge and what they did with it, and their wealth, how they earned it, and how they spent it. Let me ask you this. Are you serious about your time and how it's spent? Does it really, really concern you? So if someone comes along and wants to waste your time and says, hey, let's waste time, i.e. let's chat on the internet for something, does that concern you? Does that bother you? And then secondly, is that let's suppose it does concern you and you do wish to change things around. You're asking me what are some beneficial steps that I can take to start off on this journey? Because a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one first step. I'm going to tell you right now that those first steps are, number 1, that you need to make a good intention. A good intention to master your time. A niyyah. Because everything starts with the niyyah. You have to first make intention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, I've made the intention to master my time so that there's more time for your ibadah, there's more time to memorize Quran, there's more time for my family, there's more time for myself, there's more time for my studies, so that there can be barakah in my time, there can be this blessing where I can achieve so much in my day. Inshallah ta'ala, it starts with a niyyah, an intention, and then secondly, the second step that I'd recommend you take, these are the first 2 steps, is that you should make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make dua. Because with the dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything becomes easy after that. Stop trying to make it your effort. And instead, place your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you make that dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens avenues for you so you can start to take your time seriously. Because indeed, you're nothing more than your hours and minutes. That is who you are. And now, where do you go if you seriously want to make a shift in your life? I know a lot of times when it comes to taking care of ourselves and developing ourselves, we kind of just take a quick tip here and a quick tip there. But if you're serious about your life, there are certain aspects of every person's life that they have to master. They can't just be good at it. They have to master it. And there's no doubt that you cannot be a world leader if you don't know how to master your time, right? It just can't happen.